My wife was 35 and I was 36, the year we learned of her upcoming high school reunion. Anticipation buzzed between us as we arranged for a babysitter, both of us eager for the evening. I didn't know her former classmates, but the prospect of mingling with her old friends was exhilarating. Our paths first crossed in a bar located on the street where we both worked. She was a hairdresser, and I worked at a print shop. The first thing that struck me about her was her stunning hair, and then our eyes met. I was captivated. Her opening line about needing a haircut might seem trivial, but it marked the beginning of our journey together. We married, welcoming 2 children into our world. Our marriage, like any, had its rough patches, and there were times when we contemplated taking a break. But when it came down to it, neither of us could bear the thought of separation. At that point, infidelity wasn't in the picture, so every disagreement felt like something we could overcome with communication and effort. The bedrock of a strong marriage, right? Our children, then 13 and 16, grew up in a home where they were shielded from any heated arguments. As the reunion approached, my wife became increasingly active on Facebook, reconnecting with old high school friends. Among these were a few men, most of whom were married, like us. Initially, I thought nothing of it, but then I began to notice a constant stream of notifications on her phone, a relentless chime that seemed to fill our home. The constant notifications from my wife's phone became a relentless backdrop to our daily lives. It seemed like her phone was always chiming, whether I was in the shower, sitting on the toilet, or even as she cooked dinner and we tucked the kids into bed at night. The frequency of these alerts was becoming increasingly conspicuous, and she must have noticed it too. Eventually, I gathered the courage to ask her about the incessant texting. Her casual reply was that it was just old high school friends catching up. Seemingly in response to my inquiry, she switched her phone to vibrate. Strangely, it appeared the messages stopped altogether. But one night, long after she had fallen asleep, I was roused by the faint buzzing of her phone. Lying there, staring at the ceiling for what felt like an eternity, curiosity got the better of me. The messages I read were deeply unsettling. It was a conversation between her and one of her high school acquaintances who would be attending the reunion. In one message, she expressed her excitement about seeing him again, musing about how wonderful it would be. In another, she pondered if he had changed over the years. His response hinted at a certain kind of fun they could only have together. She playfully suggested that they might have some fun at the reunion, or maybe even after. He pointed out it seemed she was interested in continuing their encounters beyond the reunion. Notably, she didn't deny it. Resolved to address the issue head-on, I initiated a serious conversation with my wife about her interactions with this old classmate. She was quick to offer an apology, explaining that he seemed lonely and in need of friendship. However, I found this explanation insufficient to justify their discussions about having fun or continuing their interactions post-reunion. I pushed further, questioning if there had ever been any physical intimacy between them in the past, to which she firmly denied. At the time, she appeared sincere, but in light of what I now know, I'm inclined to believe she wasn't being truthful. She asked if we could still go to the reunion together, and I cautiously agreed, still holding on to some trust. I thought my presence would help keep things in check. Little did I know, she continued communicating with him, perhaps even more frequently than before. On the night of the reunion, she meticulously prepared herself, getting her hair and nails done for the occasion. At the event, it took a few minutes for the man to muster the courage to approach and reintroduce himself to my wife, while I stood by her side. His demeanor around me was uncomfortable. He seemed unable to meet my eyes, clearly eager to reconnect with her. My wife, though returning his gaze, maintained a level of consideration towards me. She introduced me in a friendly manner, but he remained undeterred and managed to stay close to her throughout the evening. As the night progressed, everyone indulged in drinks, except for me. When I stepped away to use the bathroom, I left my wife, who was now visibly drunk, in a room filled with old memories and the presence of someone who clearly still held a place in her thoughts. The evening was unfolding in a way I hadn't anticipated, leaving me feeling uneasy about what might transpire in my absence. I assured my wife I'd be back quickly, but upon my return from the restroom, both she and the man were conspicuously absent. Puzzled, I scanned the reunion, eventually inquiring with one of her classmates about their whereabouts. The woman casually mentioned they had stepped outside for a cigarette. Considering my wife wasn't a smoker, I surmised she might have just accompanied him for the conversation. I ventured outside, scouring the area, but they were nowhere to be found. My search extended to the parking lot, inspecting car interiors, hoping to spot them. Attempts to reach her on her cell phone were futile, she didn't answer. Confusion and frustration mounted as I waited for about 45 minutes. Finally, a text message from her popped up, explaining she had accompanied the man to a nearby gas station and he planned to drop her off at our house since it was close by. I couldn't help but feel she was fabricating the story. I arrived home about 30 minutes later, to find the babysitter gone and our kids peacefully asleep. My wife was sprawled on the couch, clad only in her underwear, also asleep. I woke her immediately, demanding an explanation. Her response was groggy and muddled. She tried to articulate that he had offered her a ride home to discuss his personal issues. It was clear I wasn't going to get any coherent answers from her in that state, so I resolved to wait until morning for a clearer picture. Before my wife awoke, our teenagers shared how their evening went with the babysitter, filling in the gaps of what transpired at home while we were away. The night had taken an unexpected turn, leaving me with more questions than answers, and a deepening sense of unease about the whole situation. Struggling to focus amidst the turmoil, I was at least relieved that our children were asleep when she returned home, sparing them from witnessing anything out of the ordinary. The next morning, as soon as my wife was awake, I didn't hesitate to confront her about the previous night's events. She groggily claimed a foggy memory and expressed deep regret for leaving me at the reunion and getting excessively intoxicated. After a few hours, she broke down emotionally, confessing the real events of the night. It seemed she realized I was bound to uncover the truth. She admitted that he had asked her to step outside for a private talk, and she agreed. He then suggested they sit in his car due to the chill, a decision she claimed to see no harm in at the time. With tears streaming down her face, she revealed that he had coerced her into kissing and more. However, I couldn't shake the feeling that her tears were more about being caught than genuine remorse. I demanded to see her phone, but she hesitated, making excuses. I swiftly took the phone from her and retreated to the bathroom to examine it. The messages I found were damning. She had messaged him after their encounter, acknowledging their actions as a mistake. But even more telling were messages from days before the reunion, indicating that they had planned to sneak away together, engage in physical intimacy, and even contemplated her spending the night at his place. This revelation was the final blow, signaling the end of our marriage. When I emerged from the bathroom, there she was, pale as a ghost, staring at me as if her entire world was collapsing. The trust and foundation of our marriage had been irrevocably shattered, leaving nothing but the remnants of betrayal and a relationship that could no longer be salvaged. In the stark clarity of the morning, I made it unequivocally clear to her that our marriage was over. The revelation of her calculated betrayal was too much for me to bear. Her tears streamed down as she whispered pleas for forgiveness, but I was unmoved. I reminded her that, despite her intoxicated state during the incident, this affair was premeditated, a conscious decision that shattered the trust we had painstakingly built over the years. The resolve to protect her as my wife crumbled under the weight of her actions, her choice to let another man into her life and into our marriage. My words seemed to push her deeper into despair. She curled up, her sobs filling the room, while I took upon myself the grim task of organizing her departure. I arranged for the kids to spend the night at a friend's place, shielding them from the painful aftermath. Methodically, I packed her belongings, ensuring everything was ready for her parents, whom I had called to explain the situation. They arrived to take her back home, despite her resistance. As her parents and I transferred her belongings into their car, their attempts at apology and conversation met with my terse greeting and farewell. My wife tried to step out of the car a few times, but her parents sternly warned her that leaving would mean forfeiting their support. The gravity of their words seemed to send her into a daze, as the reality of her situation sunk in. She sat motionless, a statue of regret, as they drove her away. Throughout the divorce and custody proceedings, she remained composed, her tears barely noticeable. Our teenagers chose to live with me, maintaining their routine of home and school. Despite everything, she took responsibility for her actions and made efforts to co-parent. Now, several months later, we've reached a point where we can interact amicably, a testament to the resilience of both our characters in the face of such a transformative and challenging period in our lives. Every day, I find myself grateful for the choice I made not to force a reconciliation with her. Staying in the marriage, trying to repair what had been irreparably broken, would have been excruciating for me and, perhaps ironically, might have been an easier path for her. She made her decisions, and I consciously chose a different trajectory. Her journey has been fraught with difficulty at every turn, a consequence that, in some ways, seems fitting. Despite several attempts to move out, she continues to live with her parents, struggling to find a stable footing in the aftermath of our split. On a brighter note, about a year ago, I remarried. My new wife is truly remarkable, a beacon of trustworthiness and support in my life. Sharing this experience has become important to me. It's a way to offer hope to others who are navigating their own challenging life changes. As for the top comment suggesting this wasn't her first act of infidelity, that it was just the first time arranging it with this particular individual, and advising to make co-parenting as difficult and psychologically taxing for her as possible, I appreciate the sentiment and the support. Thank you for listening to my story to the very end. If you found it insightful or helpful, please show your support with a like and subscribe to the channel. I'd also love to hear your thoughts in the comments section about this journey and the choices made along the way.